We are on the record for hearings in the matters listed in the North Dakota Industrial Commission hearing docket for December 14th. I am David Garner, hearing examiner for these hearings. We are at the hearing room for the Department of Mineral Resources, Oil and Gas Division, and it is 9 a.m. On the docket, the following matters will be continued or dismissed. Case number 30561, continued. Case number 30564, dismissed. Case number 30569, continued. Case number 30570, dismissed. Case number 30152, continued. The administrative docket starts on page 3 with case number 30571 and goes through case number 30603. These cases will be heard in the next room with Michael Zish. Audio recordings of the cases in the administrative docket will be placed on the Oil and Gas website by the end of the week. If you wish to appear in one of the matters in the administrative docket, please appear in the next room. If there is opposition to the matter, it will be brought back into this hearing room to be heard, and your statement and evidence will be taken. We're actually going to jump ahead for our first case in the docket to case number 30567. A motion of the Commission to review the operations of, consider the termination of, or any other appropriate action of the Grinnell Bakken Unit, Mackenzie and Williams County, North Dakota, operated by XTO Energy, Inc., and such other relief as is appropriate. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota. And I am appearing in case 30567 on behalf of XTO Energy, Inc. Mr. Examiner, you'll probably note that case number 30568 is a similar case, only for the Hoffland Bakken unit. At this time, we'd respectfully request that these matters be combined and consolidated for purposes of hearing. We're going to have one set of exhibits and 3 witnesses for both those cases, and we can expedite the hearing process if they're combined.
Okay. Motion granted. We'll combine both cases.
Okay.
Oh, pardon me. Now I'll read in 30568. A motion of the Commission to review the operations of, consider the termination of, or any other appropriate action of the Hoffland Bakken Unit, Mackenzie and Williams County, North Dakota, operated by XTO Energy, Inc., and such other relief as is appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Before we begin, I'd like to indicate that we will have 3 witnesses in this matter. Each one of them will introduce themselves and also indicate their area of responsibility in the state of North Dakota. We're going to be calling Kevin Gant, G-A-N-T, Mr. Ben Speer, S-P-E-E-R, and Mr. Michael, is it Thielen? I got the right? Okay, Thielen. And then also with me, Mr. Examiner, is Mr. Gregory Beal. Gregory is a in-house counsel for ExxonMobil, and he's in their Bakken business unit, and he's seated to my left.
Okay. Mr. Gant, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Kevin, would you state your full name, please?
Kevin John Gant,
And Kevin, by whom are you employed?
XTO Energy, a
In what-
subsidiary of ExxonMobil.
Okay, and in what capacity?
I'm the Bakken Operations Manager.
And in that capacity, you testified before the commission previously. In fact, it was a case very much like today, approximately a year ago. Is that correct?
That's right, September 2022.
Okay. We'd offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Kevin, let's go to the packet of exhibits that's been distributed for case 30567 and 30568 that the hearing officer has combined and consolidated for purposes of hearing. And let's start with Exhibit 1. And what I would like you to do, first of all, is identify Exhibit 1 and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it.
Okay. So Exhibit 1 is a locator map showing the location of HBU and GBU, which are in the Williams and Mackenzie counties. The GBU is comprised of about 17,000 acres and is predominantly in the Grinnell field. The HBU includes about 9,000 acres and is located in the Hoffman Field. The units are located about 40 minutes or so east of Williston and span the width of Lake Sakakawea, as you can see in the photo on the right-hand side.
Okay, and you heard me indicate that a similar matter to this was before the commission back in September of 2022, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you testified at that hearing, correct?
Correct.
And you offered some testimony as to why there was some delay in development, and then you also provided the commission with some testimony as to what XTO had planned on doing in this area in the next year or so, is that correct?
That's right.
And you're here today to talk a little bit about the status of the unit in terms of what you indicated would happen and what did happen, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, let's go and then go on to the next exhibit, Kevin. Let's go to Exhibit 2, and as you did with Exhibit 1, identify it and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it.
Okay. So as we discussed in 2019, before the units were approved, the lake and the area surrounding the lake drive the necessity for unitization. The terrain around the lake is very rugged, with a limited number of locations for well pad infrastructure development and pipeline right-of-ways. As you can see in the box in the bottom right, without the overlying HBU and GBU units, 10 of the underlying spacing units would be inaccessible, resulting in nearly 90 million barrels of oil made available through these units. While the increased reserves is important for the state and other interest owners, the units present additional advantages such as reducing surface disturbance as well as flaring. While all of these benefits were made possible by the creation of these units, the additional production also required a comprehensive takeaway plan to enable the oil and gas to reach the market. XTO began investing in the infrastructure required by the comprehensive takeaway plan even before the units were approved. And you'll see in the photo on the right-hand side, you get a sense for the terrain north and south of the lake. You can see it's very rugged terrain.
Okay, Kevin, let's go on to the next exhibit then, Exhibit 3. As you did with Exhibit 1 and 2, first identify the exhibit and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it.
All right, so this is Exhibit 3, HBU and GBU infrastructure overview. Continuing with the discussion on the takeaway plan, this shows the legacy infrastructure in the region of the units and the new infrastructure that is necessary for oil, gas, and water takeaway from the units. While there were several gathering lines in the region to support the existing wells, these are shown in the light blue, there is not sufficient compression or pipes of sufficient diameter to accommodate additional production from these units. The newly installed Rough Rider compressor station is shown as the yellow star to the right, which is just outside of the HBU. By connecting Rough Rider to the new 28-inch pipeline running south, shown in pink, the hydraulics going both north and west from HBU are improved to enable increased production from the HBU. Similarly, the Flickertail compressor station, that's the yellow star towards the middle of the photo, it enables increased production and offtake to the west from the GBU. Together, these compression facilities increase the compression capacity by 160 million cubic feet a day. These two new facilities, as well as the 3 existing compressor stations that are shown in red stars, are connected by a new 28-inch pipeline trunk line running in the east-west direction, again shown in pink, which includes over 10 miles of pipeline. The 2 compressor stations and the 28-inch pipeline are completed and online, performing as designed. The Rough Rider station started up in May of 2023, and the Flickertail started up in November of 2023. There were some delays experienced due to harsh weather a year or so ago, and equipment preservation challenges that caused corrosion that has since been repaired. As we progress with the HBU and GBU developments, further pipelines will be needed to be installed to support each new well pad. These pipelines are depicted in the darker blue color on the map.
Just a couple clarifications or couple follow-up questions, Kevin. You have the pink line, and as you've described that and have on here, that's the completed 28-inch pipeline. But there seems to be a gap between a portion, basically say the western part of the pipeline and the eastern part of the pipeline that is not pink. Can you help us understand what's going on there?
Yeah, that section of line was installed in 2019, so it was pre-existing relative to the latest project that we installed in pink.
Okay, and there's some dark blue lines on here, and I'll ask you a question about that. And
Yeah.
it says additional pipelines needed, but then there's some other lines on here, green and blue and light blue. Just tell us a little bit about that. Were those existing lines, or are those lines yet to be constructed? Just a brief explanation of that, Kevin.
Those are other existing lines that we have within our operating units.
Okay, some of which may have been constructed prior to unitization and since unitization, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. All right, let's go on then to no, that's, I guess, all the exhibits that you're going to be discussing, is that
Yeah,
correct?
until the conclusion, yes.
Yeah, that's all the questions I have for this witness, Mr. Examiner.
Any questions from the staff?
Kevin, the dark blue lines seem to parallel light blue lines in some areas, is that right?
Yeah, looking at the map, that's right.
And is that, are you looping lines there, or what's the reason for parallel, or is that just a different, I assume the light blue is also gas infrastructure?
You know,
Not sure, we,
yeah, we'll have to get back to you on that.
Well,
The-
we can have,
Yeah, go ahead, Lawrence.
I was just going to say, we can have Mr. Spear answer that question when he's called as a witness, and he'll be the next witness.
Yeah, I think just to answer the question on the dark blue lines, that's a schematic of what the tie-ins will be from the future pads that we have planned to be installed. Drilling sites at HBU and GBU, and those will be the necessary takeaway pipelines for oil, gas, and water depicted in dark blue.
Do you know when those dark blue lines are gonna be installed?
We have an exhibit coming up that'll show the schedule, but just to answer your question now, it'll be in the vicinity of 2024 through 2025.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin, the trunk line section on Exhibit 3 kind of jumps back and forth between past, present, and future tense, so I want to walk through that a little bit. So the third bullet says completed and online February 2023. What was completed and online February of 2023?
I'm just trying to look where you're looking, Lynn.
Trunk lines, the third bullet down.
Okay. Yeah, that was the area between Rough Rider and Flickertail of that pink line. So we were installing, I would say, between 2022 and February of 2023, all of the pink from the left-hand star with the Woodrow compressor station, all the way through to the right-hand red star, and then the north-south line going from the Rough Rider south into the tie-ins. That was all part of one big project.
Okay, and you testified that the section just to the right of the red star was an older section, the same size.
Yeah, we had started the Rough Rider and Flickertail expansions in the 2019 timeframe, along with some of the pipeline work. In 2020, we put that work on hold and then restarted work on the Rough Rider and Flickertail stations, as well as the rest of the pink. During the 2019 timeframe, when that project had been started, we had completed the section that is blanked out between the red star and the pink line. So it was part of the initial project, but it had been completed prior to curtailing back in 2020.
Okay. sticking with the past tense, jumping up to the new compressor stations, second bullet. So, Rough Rider and Flicker Tail, are they operational, and when
Yeah,
did they
you
become
bet.
operational? I'm sorry?
Yeah, so the Rough Rider came online in May of 2023, and the Flicker Tail came online in November of 2023. So the Rough Rider has a capacity of 100 million cubic feet a day. All compressors are working well. Flicker Tail has a capacity of 60 million cubic feet a day. It came online in November, so just roughly a month ago, and with a capacity of 60 million.
Okay.
And everything's running very well there as well.
So then back to the trunk lines, the second bullet, the 53,000 feet of pipeline, that's future pipeline
That's-
that has to be
that's-
built?
That's current with the pink line.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's the current total, of light blue and pink.
That would be the total of the pink that
total
we
of pink.
installed
Okay,
as part of the project in 2022, ending in early 2023.
okay, and then the final bullet there, the pad connect pipelines, is that the dark blue ones that you talk about as additional pipeline needs?
Yeah, that's right, Lynn. So you'll see on an upcoming exhibit, we have a schedule of when we're going to be constructing pad facilities, and then the right-of-ways and pipelines. That'll be over the next couple of years. So that dark blue will be pipelines that are installed to enable takeaway capacity from the pads that we have planned to develop on HBU and GBU.
And in the packet, then you gave us a schedule of that.
Yeah, that'll be
It's more
upcoming.
detailed than just a couple of years. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mr. Spear,
Sir,
please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Ben, state your full name for the record, please,
Benjamin Gamble Spear,
and by whom were you employed?
XTO.
In what capacity?
I am the Bakken Projects Manager.
And you're an engineer, is that correct?
Yes.
And have you testified before the commission previously?
No, I have not.
What I'd like you to do is briefly highlight for us your educational background and work experience.
Sure. So I hold a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, a Master of Science in Engineering Management from the Air Force Institute of Technology. In my 21-year career, I started in the Air Force as a civil engineering officer, led projects, construction, did some environmental engineering, some base maintenance and infrastructure type engineering. Got hired on with ExxonMobil in 2007. In my 16-year career with ExxonMobil, I've had various project management related assignments. Worked at the Beaumont refinery as a project engineer. Worked in Angola for 6.5 years doing both small projects and major projects. Worked in the unconventional projects business in the Permian for 3 years as a venture project controls lead, and assumed my current position in July of this year.
Why don't you briefly discuss for us your responsibilities with respect to GBU and HBU?
Sure. So I'm leading the project organization that's responsible for delivering those surface components. So the well pads, the well pad facilities, and pipeline infrastructure.
Now for the further testimony, this witness out of an expert.
Motion granted.
Okay, Ben, let's go to the next exhibit, Exhibit 4. And as Kevin had done with the previous exhibits, what I'd like you to do is first identify Exhibit 4 and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it.
Sure. So Exhibit 4 is the Rough Rider compressor station and Flicker Tail compressor station. So what we're showing here are photos of these two stations, and I'll give some additional kind of supporting details on these. So the Rough Rider compressor station is the photo to the left. First, I'd note that these are both identical designs. The only difference is that Rough Rider has more compressor units. So Rough Rider has 8 compressor units, and that's why it has that additional capacity, getting this one up to 100 million cubic feet. Otherwise, they're identical. Kevin mentioned the completion dates of these, so that's listed here as well. And this also shows the approximate total costs of these compressor stations.
And when XTO was before the commission in September of 2022, both these compressor stations, work had started on them, is that correct?
That's correct.
But it hadn't completed.
That's correct.
Let's go on to Exhibit 5. Tell us what Exhibit 5 is.
Sure. So this is just this Exhibit 5 is the 28-inch pipeline spine. And this is showing photos of some visible components of this pipeline. So much of the pipeline is buried, but these are some parts that you can see. The photo on the left shows the Beaver Bay picking facilities, and specifically it's showing a launcher. This launcher can pig out and purge out fluids to the Rough Rider compressor station to the north via 28-inch pipeline. This is also a point at which we're going to tie in a future pipeline. So one of the key trunk line that we're going to need to handle the gas volumes from HBU is going to come up this way and tie into this location here. And so that'll be called the Mueller trunk line. The photo on the left shows a pig receiver. And what this can do is that we'll receive a pig here, and there's a launcher not shown in this photo, but a launcher that can pig out to the flicker tail compressor station. So similar to the Rough Rider, purge out fluids to that station. So yeah, and these are both, again, locations along kind of midpoints on that 28-inch pink pipeline that was noted in the previous exhibit.
Does the approximate cost that you have listed in here, does that include that segment that is not colored in pink on the previous exhibit, or is that excluding that?
It excludes that portion, right?
So a little bit more than 25 million in terms of constructing that line.
That would be correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's go on to the next exhibit, and I know Kevin briefly touched on the fact that there's a timeline. So as you've done in the previous exhibits, identify Exhibit 6 and then discuss the more pertinent aspects of this exhibit.
Sure. So this is the HBU-GBU activity schedule. So what this depicts is our activity over the last 2 years, and it also shows our future activity getting into 2026. So let me talk to this, and I'll start from left to right. Okay, so the top green bar is highlighting our duct completion. So with all of our rig activity up to around end of 2019, beginning of 2020, we had accumulated a large inventory of duct wells. And so that's constituted the majority of our development activity to date is completing those duct wells. To date, about the majority of those have been completed and have been brought online. As we get into next year, we're gonna finish our final batches of those. There'll be a batch completed, another 10 to 15 wells brought online in the first quarter of next year. And then the final batch is 10 wells on the existing Mueller pad that'll be brought online in the fourth quarter of next year. This shows also the construction of the Rough Rider and Flicker Tail compressor stations that we've talked about that are now complete, as we mentioned. So now looking into 2024 next year, we mentioned the completion of those Mueller duct wells. To bring those online, we need to build the facility. There's an existing pad, of course, but we need to add the facility to that pad to bring those online. We're also going to be constructing that Mueller Mueller trunk line that I mentioned in the previous exhibit, and that's needed for both this pad and HBU volumes in general. And I'll also note that we're going to be doing pads construction for all the subsequent HBU pads as well. So this schedule indicates that we're going to be building the facilities, the remainder of the HBU facilities in 2025. And so to get some of that early scope done and off critical path, we're going to be building the pads next year, and also, in preparation of the drilling rig coming into positions on those pads. And so to the right of this schedule, we're showing those that we're going to have 2 rigs. It's going to be a 2-rig program and 1 completion crew. And so with drilling is forecasted to complete by the end of 2025, and then we'll continue on with completions, and then all of the HBU wells are planned to be brought online by the end of 2026.
You talked a little bit about the duck wells. Do you recall what XTO represented to the commission back in September of 2022 as to how many duck wells there were?
That would have been a total of 158.
And I know you talked a little bit about probably not having all of those completed, but can you give us an estimate of how many of those 158 were in fact completed between September and now?
Do we have a number? Yeah, so that's the 127. Yes, that's right.
That's all the questions I have for this witness.
Any questions from the staff?
Ben, looking at Exhibit 6 here, you said that the Mueller pad wells would be completed and come online in the fourth quarter of '24, but your second bullet point states that the facility build will begin in 2024.
That's correct. Yes, we'll start construction of the facility next year.
So the wells wouldn't be online then yet if the facility's not built.
They'll be brought online with the conclusion of the facility. Yeah,
So when do you expect the construction to actually be done?
the fourth quarter of 24.
Thanks.
Then there was 158 duck wells at the last hearing that was testified to, and you completed 127. And you said you had 10 to 15 left to complete beginning of 24. What's the discrepancy in that, in the total? Is there some wells that were plugged, or what's the discrepancy?
Do you mind if Mr. Gant answers
No,
that?
that's fine.
Yeah, no, good. So yeah, we had 158 ducks going into 2021 when we started the program in the fourth quarter. 127 have been successfully completed, and that all of those will be online by the first quarter. Most of them are online now, just tying in the last, couple of handfuls. There's 21 remaining, including the Mullers. There's 10 Mullers and 11 others, and we'll be completing the majority of those through the 2024 timeframe. That is not shown in the bar, but if it was depicted, it would be right around the timing of the Mueller completions. Of the 158, there were also 8 that were divested in 2023 and 2 that have been plugged. And that gets to the 158.
The 2-rig HBU program, how long do you anticipate that's gonna take to drill out HBU?
So we'll be done drilling out HBU by end of 2025.
Yeah. Can I add to that? Thereabouts the end of 2025. We're targeting the start of drilling in the first quarter, and roll through HBU somewhere in 2025, or it could go into early 2026, just given the uncertainties in the the duration, and we haven't drilled in that area for a number of years, and then we would follow that up with a GBU program. All in, we're thinking a year and a half ish of actual drilling work, and then there's the associated completions, tie-ins, pad facilities, and whatnot.
Kevin, as long as you're on the standing, and what's the flicker tail that 28-inch pipeline, do you know what is how much is going through it right now?
I think it's on the order of 40 going through Flicker Tail. Yeah, so it's been in the order of 40 as of late.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Ben or Kevin, is XTO planning to have one completion crew go through the year of 2024 for the current duck wells? Or are you gonna get another completion crew to try to wrap those up?
I can answer that. So we had a steady completions crew from 2021, fourth quarter, all the way through the better part of October of 2023. That's completed, those duck wells as of now. Within 2024, we will bring in 1 or 2 spot crews, but I would suspect that it will be one crew running at any given time, to answer your question. And so we likely bring that crew in somewhere in the middle of the year of 2024.
I do have one more question for Ben. I don't know if you covered it. If you did, I missed it. That star in the middle of or to the right side of the chart says first HBU WTS.
Wells, yes, wells to sales.
Okay, yeah.
Ben, those 8 wells, those are just pending transfer through the commission, I'm assuming, is that right?
I'm sorry, which 8 wells?
You stated there were 8 wells that were sold of the total. Was that already transferred operatorship, or is that pending?
I think that's been transferred.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that would have been as of mid-2023.
Mr. Examiner, I do have one follow-up question for Ben, if I may.
Sure.
Ben, I know yesterday we briefly discussed something on this exhibit number 6 wasn't quite accurate. I think it was the 3rd bullet point. Can you point out the difference between what this should say and what it does say on there? I apologize, I should have asked you that earlier.
I think we were referring to the 2nd bullet point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes. Maybe a better way to phrase that is that the duck program is over 80% complete currently, and all remaining duck wells will be online by end of 2024, and that includes the HBU Mueller wells that are scheduled to be brought online in the 4th quarter of 2024.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Thielen, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Michael, state your full name for the record, please.
Michael John Thielen,
And Michael, by whom are you employed?
XTO Energy.
What capacity?
I am a reservoir engineer for the Bakken Business Unit.
And have you testified before the commission previously?
I have not.
What I'd like you to do, as Ben did, is briefly highlight for us your educational background and work experience.
Yeah, gladly. I have a Bachelor's of Petroleum Engineering from the University of Texas at Austin. I'm also a licensed professional engineer in the state of Texas and have been for 10 years now. I started my career with Halliburton, and I've spent 7 years there, primarily doing upstream hydraulic fracturing and cementing engineering, as well as other broad expertise roles there. I then went to Oasis Petroleum, spent 8 years at Oasis Petroleum, now Chord Energy. Half of that time as a completions engineer, the other half of that time as a reservoir engineer. I then spent 1 year working Permian Basin for a small private equity-backed company as a reservoir engineer, and then I left there to come here, so I've been with XTO for about 1.5 years now.
And have you prepared or had prepared under your control and supervision some exhibits that you intend to sponsor?
I have,
And have you satisfied yourself as to the accuracy of those exhibits?
yes.
For the further testimony, this witness out of an expert.
Motion granted.
Okay, Michael, let's go to the next exhibit in the packet, Exhibit 7. As the previous witnesses have done, please identify Exhibit 7 and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it.
Yes, I'll start by saying that both Exhibit 7 and Exhibit 8 that we'll cover next are as they have been presented at the last hearing, and they also represent as they exist today. So this is still representative as it looks today. Looking at the map on the right, you'll see a bunch of pink well laterals. Those represent the existing producing wells, both in HBU and GBU. In GBU, there are 27 wells, and in HBU, there are 18 total, inclusive of the 10 Mueller ducts. So for a total of 27 and 18 for the two of those. In the upper right-hand portion of the map, you'll see the 10 Mueller ducts. Those were drilled in mid-2020, and that's when we stopped our drilling activity.
Did you want to talk about the next table, the new wells by formation?
On the next slide.
I'm on Exhibit
Oh,
7.
I see. Yeah, so of the Mueller ducts, we've got a mix of co-developed Bakken and Three Forks wells. And, you know, as we'll see on the next exhibit, we will continue that pattern.
All right, let's go to Exhibit 8. And once again, identify Exhibit 8 and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it.
Yeah, so same as the last slide, this is as it was presented at the hearing last year. And it is still representative of our current plan for development for both the HBU and GBU units. So in a fully developed program, you see exposure of all of the reservoir here. And in HBU, we'll start with HBU, that would be 54 total wells. That's inclusive of the 8 existing producers, the 10 Mueller ducts that have been drilled but not completed, and then an additional 36 new drill wells that would start in 2025. And then moving over to GBU, a little bit larger acreage position that would have, in addition to the 26 existing wells, another 78 new drill wells for a total of 104 wells there.
Okay, and I think we already talked about timing, so I don't have any other questions for this witness.
Any questions from the staff?
Your Exhibit 8 in this case, is that still consistent with the development plan that was presented when the units were originally proposed?
It is.
Okay. And so your intent is still to develop Middle Bakken TF1 and TF2 in the HBU and just Middle Bakken and Three Forks 1 in Grinnell?
That is the current plan.
Okay. And just confirming the one on Exhibit 7, the one Three Forks well that's depicted in GBU is actually that Petro Hunt lease line.
That's
on the
right.
South. Okay.
That's right.
And that's just on the border of the unit, so partially sharing with the unit.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Michael, on Exhibit 8, has there been any consideration on the west side of GBU instead of multiple 2-mile wells to just do 2 pads of 3-mile with the McPeet and Wayne Kelly pads?
Yes, and as Kevin will mention in the conclusion, we are still working to optimize the development, which would include changing of locations and lateral lengths, so that, you know, that is being considered.
Are 1.5-mile laterals economic for XTO?
Yes. It can be here.
I think if I can add to that, I think we tend to go with 2-milers or 3-milers. I think in the event that a 1.5-mile lateral would be needed, and if that's the case here, then we would look at what is the most economic and way to most conserve the resource to develop the resource. And with that, with the minimum footprint that we can have.
I'm looking at your Exhibit 7, and it's pretty clear to me where the 10 Hoffland wells are. But for the life of me, I can't find the one Grinnell well. that's listed in the table there?
Oh, yeah, so at the very bottom where you see the box where it says Petro Hunt, it's
Yes.
the dashed maroon line just to the left of that box. So it's essentially a shared section line well. It's that 3-mile lateral at the bottom.
So Petro Hunt is gonna operate that well, or there is a unit well that parallels it?
They already do operate that well,
Okay.
but it's shown just because it has shared minerals with this as it's on the lease line.
But you plan to drill a well in the unit, or you listed that because it's a shared well?
That's right, listed because it's shared.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that indicates, if I'm correct, no activity in Grinnell for the remainder of this year for 2024.
That's right.
And if I read the timeline correct, probably not until well into 26,
At the current timeline, that would be accurate.
because you're estimating 18 months to drill out Hoffland, and then you move to Grinnell.
Maybe just to clarify, I'm just gonna go to the exhibit. We wanna have a steady program, a 2-rig program where we'll start on HBU and then move on to GBU, and similarly with our construction. And so we'd anticipate drilling HBU through into early 2026, followed by the GBU development. So, Linda, answer your question on whether there's activity in 2024 or 5. I would expect that to be limited on the GBU, limited to none, but then really picking up, as we get into 2026, 7. And that's so we can have a steady program of a couple of rigs, steady completions crew, construction crew led by Ben.
So coming from someone who can't look under the hood at XTO, with 2 rigs, why wouldn't you have one running in each unit? What's the purpose of 2 rigs and 1 completion crew running in one unit and nothing going on in the other one?
I think just, and that's something we'll continue to look at, Lynn, as we go forward, is does it make sense to do some activity in both, but the way it currently stands with our development plan, we would drill HBU just for the economies of scale and the proximity of the pads to one another and for takeaway. We would do that together and then follow that up with GBU is a current line of thinking.
Do you have one more witness? Sir?
We're going to recall Kevin.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Kevin, let's go to the last exhibit
Okay.
in the packet, Exhibit 9. And there's a lot of information on here. I certainly don't want you to read it, but why don't you summarize what's contained on Exhibit 9 for us? I think you have it labeled as conclusions.
Yeah, so to close out the discussion, Exhibit 9 is our conclusions exhibit to help connect some of the key points. XTO has invested about $1 billion over the 2022-3 timeframe, completing wells and installing infrastructure to prepare for HBU and GBU. Our activities have proceeded largely at pace and according to plan for our completions, and then the timing of getting our compressor stations online and ready for HBU and GBU. The increased production from either unit required additional compression and pipeline capacity, which is now installed. That infrastructure that we installed, this is of the $1 billion I just stated, it was about $200 million for the Rough Rider, the Flicker Tail, and the 28-inch trunk line. And that was pre-investment that is going to benefit HBU, GBU, and the interest owners in those units. The alternative of developing sooner would have been additional ducts or flaring. We've continued to progress plans for HBU and GBU developments. with construction at HBU scheduled for 2024. The program that we have is to frack the HBU Muller ducts in the third quarter at the start of the HBU development, and at the same time be constructing pads for a future drilling program in early 2025 for the broader HBU development. We will continue, or XTO will continue to optimize development plans for HBU and GBU, leveraging the broader experience from XTO in multiple basins that we have. And all in all, with the sum of the investments that we've made over the last 2 years, plus the upcoming investments with HBU and GBU, that's going to be a total of $2 billion of investment, $1 billion which has occurred, and around $1 billion which is to come in investments in HBU and GBU combined. Over the next number of months, as we continue to refine our plans, we'll strive to find operational efficiencies, ways to minimize our footprint, and really optimize the development as we start breaking ground in the 2024 timeframe.
Mr. Examiner, excuse me, I don't have any further questions. We would offer exhibits 1 through 9.
Exhibits are admitted. Anything further from the staff?
Kevin, looking at
Go ahead.
your third bullet point there, you stated that the Muller ducts for Q3 of 24, but Ben previously testified that it would be Q4 of 24 for when those would be completed. Is it, so which one is it, 3 or 4 quarter?
Yeah, it's the probably homonym of completed, depending upon how you're looking at it. It's, when we say completed in this context, it is fracking the Muller, so actually doing the completions. The startup, I think, which Ben was referring to, would be later on in 2024, in the fourth quarter is what we're targeting.
Okay.
Tentatively November.
Okay. And then on that same one, for the major trunk line and midstream infrastructure to be completed in 24, the main trunk line was completed in February of 23. So when you refer to that, you're stating those blue lines on Exhibit 3 would be the rest that's completed in 24?
Yeah, some of the, there's a small blue line, the dark blue on the prior exhibit, that would be tying in the Muller pad into the broader infrastructure.
Okay. Thanks.
Anything further? That concludes our hearing for case numbers 30567 and 30568. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, have a good trip back. Thank you.
Is it appropriate to say goodbye or
Well, sure. Good. Take a little time.
Case number 30561, application of EOG Resources, Inc. For an order amending the field rules for the partial Bakken Pool, Montreal County, North Dakota, to create and establish 2 overlapping 2560-acre spacing units comprised of sections 28, 33, and 34, Township 154 North, Range 90 West, and Section 3, Township 153 North, Range 90 West, and Sections 32 and 33, Township 154 North, Range 90 West, and Sections 3 and 4, Township 153 North, Range 90 West, authorizing the drilling, completing, and producing of a well on each proposed overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit. This matter has been continued to our January hearings. Case number 30562, application of EOG Resources, Inc. for an order amending the field rules for the Stanley Bakken Pool, Montreal County, North Dakota, to create and establish an overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit comprised of sections 17, 18, 20, and 29, Township 155 North, Range 90 West, authorizing the drilling, completing, and producing of a well on said proposed overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota, and I'm appearing in case 30562 on behalf of EOG Resources, Inc. EOG plans on calling two witnesses in this matter. Mr. Peter Garbee will be offering some land testimony, Garbee, and then Mr. John Schmidt will be offering some geologic and engineering testimony. Both witnesses will be appearing by telephone. I believe they're both on.
Mr. Garbee,
Peter, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay.
Mr. Garbee, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Peter, would you state your full name for the commission, please?
Peter Joseph Garbee,
And Peter, by whom are you employed?
EOG Resources, Inc.
In what capacity?
I am a senior landman.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
I have not.
What I'd like you to do, Peter, is briefly highlight for the examiner and the commission staff your educational background and work experience.
Okay. I attended Regis University, graduated with a Bachelor in Science degree in Business Finance in 2009, subsequently attended Western State Colorado University, now known as Western Colorado University, graduated in 2011 with a Bachelor of Science, or Bachelor of Arts, in professional land and resource management, and have worked in the oil and gas industry ever since. Started with EOG in 2014, and have worked in land capacities for the company since then.
And in preparation for today's hearing, have you made a thorough study and review of all the relevant land matters concerning EOG's request in case 30562?
I have.
And have you prepared or had prepared under your control and supervision some exhibits you intend to sponsor? Pardon me, we didn't get the answer.
Yes, I have.
Okay. I'll offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Peter, let's go through the packet of exhibits. Let's start with the cover page. It's been previously marked as L1. Can you tell me what L1 is?
L1 is a regional location map showing the field boundary of the Stanley Bakken Pool, highlighted in red, Montreal County, North Dakota.
Okay, and L2?
L2 zooms in to this area, 155 north, 90 west, and shows the proposed DSU outlined in red, encompassing section 17, 18, 20, and 29 of 155-90.
Okay, and Exhibit L3?
Exhibit L3 further zooms in to this proposed spacing unit. Shows the working interest, the EOG working interest is 71.25%.
All right, and then Exhibit L4?
Exhibit L4 shows that same spacing unit overlaid onto prior existing spacing units. And in the last hearing, we had requested an expedited order for this spacing unit, in which we received yesterday or the day before, and the other spacing units highlighted on this map have been vacated in order 30511.
Okay, that's all the questions I have for the land witness.
Any questions from the staff? Mr. Schmidt,
Yes, sir.
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, sir.
John, state your name for the record, please.
John Michael Schmidt,
And by whom are you employed?
EOG Resources, as a senior geological engineer and operations coordinator.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously and had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
No, offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
John, let's go to the next exhibit in the packet, G1. Tell me what G1 is.
D1 is a Middle Bakken reservoir structure map showing the Middle Bakken is present at approximately 7050 subsea in this unit. The Burke 3-16 pilot hole is highlighted. It's used as our type log, and the dip of the Bakken in this area is to the southwest. That Burke 3-16 pilot hole is then shown as the type log in Exhibit G2, showing that the Upper Bakken Shale, Middle Bakken, Lower Bakken, and Three Forks are all present under the unit, in and around the unit as a pool.
Now, one of the laterals on here you have, I mean, they're a blue and black, but you have one in purple. Can you tell me what, why you have it?
That's a Three Forks well that was drilled in Section 20, and at this time, we're not planning on drilling any more Three Forks wells. The one well we're asking for is going to be a Bakken well for this 17, 18, 20, and 29 unit.
Okay, and let's go to Exhibit G2.
G2 then is the type log with showing that the well is up at the northeast corner of this proposed unit, and right in next door in Section 16 to Section 17, and showing that the Middle Bakken pool is present in and around the unit.
Okay, then let's go to E1.
E1 just shows what we're asking for in this unit, which is Section 17, 18, 20, and 29. We're planning on drilling one Bakken well, no Three Forks wells, for a total of one well.
All right, and then E2.
E2 then shows the unit highlighted in green. As we just discussed, there's the Bakken well, existing Bakken wells that were most of them drilled on a 640 basis are in the blue color. The Three Forks well is in the purple color. We will be crossing under the Bakken well, the Burke well in Section 20, and over the Three Forks well, which we have recently done. Actually, the rig that's coming to drill this DSU just went under a Bakken well while drilling a Bakken well down along the lake in the Liberty Township. So that's something we feel we're technically capable of, and so this well that we're proposing in this DSU will do that crossing in Section 20. And then the other two proposed units are proposed wells that will be drilled at the same time are in dashed red. Those wells are in separate DSUs that have now both been approved. So this is the final DSU that we need approved to drill this 3-well package, and that rig that is down along the lake in Liberty Township, this is the next pad it's coming to.
And how long will the lateral be on this proposed well for the 2560?
Approximately 16,000 feet.
Okay.
So just over 3 miles. And that's something that we're drilling. That's something that we're drilling with regularity under the lake at this point.
Okay. Then let's go to E3.
E3 just shows that cross-section, a cross-section showing the relative positions in the reservoir of the wells we're proposing to drill, with those 2 wells in the other DSUs in dashed red, are the well in this DSU in green, and then the existing wells in the solid blue and purple.
All right. And then let's go to E4.
E4 is an exhibit that was requested by Mr. Suggs, I believe, last in case 30511, showing it was a supplemental exhibit showing what our development east of this 3-well package would be in the future, and it just shows that we're planning on drilling longer wells from approximately 3 pads to finish out the development in this Burke Township.
Okay. And then E5.
E5 is just the typical wellbore diagram for an EOG well. As I said, it's going to be about a 16,000-foot lateral with plug and perf stages, approximately 85 plug and perf stages.
And E6?
E6 shows the reservoir properties for the area with a 2560, which we're proposing containing about 64 million barrels of oil. That's the key number to take away from this. And then on E7 shows our economics, given those oil property, the property reservoir properties on the previous E6. We think that this well will have an EUR of about 967,000 barrels. The cost investment of $12,200,000 for drilling the one well. The 2560 case, we only were asking for the one well, the 16,000-foot lateral, and return on investment of 2.06, the undiscounted cash flow of 12.88. And I think that is it for my exhibit.
Okay, E7?
Oh, that was E7. Sorry, I was
Okay.
going through.
Did you cover
That's-
E6?
That's the
It went
economic.
so quickly, I don't remember what.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry. E6 was the reservoir properties, and then using those reservoir properties, we come to the economics in E7 that just described.
Okay. And GC1, that's a gas capture affidavit that's typically required in these sorts of hearings. Is that correct?
That's correct, and our gatherer is Pecan, our our own EOG pipeline company for gas gathering, and the processor is Octable gas processing plant, just about 6 miles to the north of here.
Mr. Examiner, I don't have any further questions. Offer the exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Any questions from the staff?
John, looking at your, not E4, E2, when you discussed that exhibit, you talked about, traversing the two existing wells in that middle spacing unit, drilling basically between the existing Middle Bakken and the Three Forks well, correct?
Correct.
You want to give me a rough idea, looking at G2, where your target is in the Middle Bakken and where you plan to traverse?
Sure. We're going to go down. Where we're crossing that lateral will be just below the gamma ray marker, and so we're going to use that gamma ray marker. Where we will cross that well, the existing wellbore is basically in the gamma ray marker. So as we approach it, we will go down below the gamma ray marker, so about approximately 12 feet below the top of the Middle Bakken. And so the new wellbore will probably be down at about 16 to 20 feet below. And hopefully, our intent is to stay out of the lower shale. So we're hoping to be about 8 feet above the lower shale and 8 feet below the existing well. And that's what we just did down in the Liberty Township. We just crossed about 8 feet below an existing Middle Bakken well, and we're able to do that and didn't see any magnetic interference in our tools. So we feel like we were far enough away, and that's how we're planning to do these crossings. And obviously, the Three Forks well will have the lower shale in between us and our proposed wellbore. So we don't think there's any chance of hitting the Three Forks well.
Yeah, so just confirming your intent is to just stay above the lower shale as you go underneath that existing Middle Bakken well at this point?
Yes, sir, we are hoping.
Okay, and then any changes or any plans for customizing your stimulation where you're crossing that lateral?
We will probably buffer out maybe 200 feet before and 200 feet after that Middle Bakken well. I don't think we will buffer out anything around the Three Forks well, or the crossing of the Three Forks well.
Okay, and then how about down in 29 where you have the three kind of laterals in, I guess, closer proximity to each other as they come off that pad? Is there plans to adjust those stimulations?
Yeah, we probably will do in that first 2,000 feet of each well. We will probably do kind of an alternating frac to make sure that the two outside wells, if you're coming from the heel, the two outside wells would have a stage, and then we'd skip a stage in the outside wells and frac the inside well and kind of do that until we are at least 600 to 800 feet of separation between the well bores.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes our hearing for case number 30562. At this time, why don't we take a 10-minute break? We're off the record at 10:06. Okay, we're back on the record. It is 10:16 a.m. We'll call case number 30563. Application of Enterplus Resources USA Corp. for an order for the Murphy Creek Bakken Pool, Dunn County, North Dakota, to create and establish 4 overlapping 1920 acre spacing units comprised of sections 17, 20, and 29, sections 18, 19, and 30, Township 144 North, Range 94 West, Section 31, Township 144 North, Range 94 West, and Sections 6 and 7, Township 143 North, Range 94 West, and Section 32, Township 144 North, Range 94 West, and Sections 5 and 8, Township 143 North, Range 94 West. Authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 5 horizontal wells on each proposed overlapping 1920 acre spacing unit. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing in this matter. Case is 30563 on behalf of Enterplus Resources USA. We'll be calling 3 witnesses. Zach, you want to state your full name for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Zach Snyder.
You want to call him now? Yeah. Okay. Mr. Schneider,
Yes,
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
yes, I do.
Zach, by whom are you employed?
I'm employed by Interplus Resources USA
What capacity?
as landman.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes, I have.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Zach, let's turn to the packet of exhibits for case 30563. Let's skip the cover page, let's skip the table of contents, and go right to what's been marked as Exhibit L1. Tell me what Exhibit L1 is.
Yes, Exhibit L1 is an area reference map showing the location of the 4 proposed overlapping 1,920 acre spacing units. These are in Dunn County, North Dakota, and Murphy Creek is the Bakken is the field.
Okay, and then let's go to Exhibit L2. Tell us what Exhibit L2 is.
Okay, Exhibit L2 is an ownership map showing 2 of the 1920s. The first encompassing Township 144 North, Range 94 West, Section 31, and Township 143 North, Range 94 West, Sections 6 and 7. Interplus's working interest in this unit is calculated at approximately 71.25%. The second 1920 represented on the exhibit encompasses Township 144 North, Range 94 West, Section 32, and Township 143 North, Range 94 West, Sections 5 and 8. Interplus's working interest in this unit was approximately 74.27%, and then each of the respective underlying 1280s, Interplus's interest is represented in the exhibits in gray on top of the units themselves.
Okay, then let's go to Exhibit L3. Can you tell us what L3 is?
Yes, Exhibit L3 is the ownership map showing the final 2 proposed 1920s. The first encompasses Township 144 North, Range 94 West, Sections 18, 19, and 30. Interplus's working interest in this unit is right at 86%. The second unit encompasses Township 144 North, Range 94 West, Sections 17, 20, and 29. Interplus's working interest is approximately 90.94%. And again, the underlying 1280s are represented with Interplus's interest in gray on top of the units.
Okay, let's go to L4.
L4 is a land operation map showing the proposed wellbores in the units I described on Exhibit L2. It also shows the existing wellbores currently spaced at 1280 and a restatement of Interplus's working interest in the 1920s and underlying 1280.
And L5.
Exhibit L5 is the land operation map showing the other 2 1920s, and these are described previously on Exhibit L3. It also includes the new proposed wellbore, the existing 1280 wells, and a restatement of our interest again.
No further questions of the land witness.
Any questions from the staff?
Zach, this area has been spaced and somewhat developed on pattern stand-up 1,200 acre spacing units. And Enerplus's proposal here for 1920s is what the commission would be deemed off pattern, where eventually, and in this case, your 1920s cross a township line, and eventually you're going to run into a correction line. Do you know why Enerplus chose the space units it did?
Yes, I do. These two are these 4 units completely encompass our underlying 1280. We don't have any additional. We're not including any additional outside operated units, and so we're on pattern in regards to our 1280s that are currently spaced.
Okay, thank you.
Zach, since the wells are on your exhibits here, looking at your L4, and you can push this off to one of your other witnesses if you want, but looking at your L4, it looks like one of your wells is going to traverse, I'm looking down in section 7, one of your new wells is going to traverse the existing well. Do you know what the plan is for that crossing? Or should that be asked?
This is a question that I probably have to defer to either an engineer or the geologist.
Okay, I'll ask it when they're up.
What's the name of your next witness?
I'll just have him state his name. Jeff, will you state your full name for the record?
Jeff Kiernan,
And can you spell your last name?
Kiernan.
He's a Kearney?
Kiernan.
Kiernan.
Kiernan, yes.
Kiernan. Mr. Kiernan, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Jeff, by whom are you employed,
Enerplus Resorts USA,
and in what capacity?
senior geologist.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
I have.
And have you had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
I'm going to offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Jeff, let's turn to the next exhibit in the packet. It looks like it has been previously marked as G1. And what I'd like you to do is identify G1 and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it.
Certainly. Exhibit G1 is a local structure contour map in a 4 township area in the vicinity of the 4 proposed 1960 acre DSUs. The map is constructed on the top of the Upper Bakken Shale as a proxy for the size of the reservoir. It shows the fairly monoclinal uniform dip of about 40 to 50 feet per mile, dipping to the northeast in the vicinity of the DSUs. It also shows the outline of the 4 DSUs described in the land exhibit, and highlights in the boulder lines with the green circles the existing wells therein, and an illustrative only sketch of how an additional 4 3-mile locations might be added to those units. So in answer to the question earlier, rather than attempt to traverse some of these wellbores, we may attempt to deviate around them. Because we do not intend to drill 3 forks here, we do intend to keep these wells in the Bakken. So rather than try to dance around within the fairly thin Bakken section here, we would likely deviate the wells around the existing wellbore, especially that well there in section 30 and 31.
Okay,
Which is rather upfield.
sorry to interrupt. Let's go to exhibit G2.
Sure. G2 is a type log for the area that is also highlighted on the previous map. I might add the Wallace 71H pilot hole, which was drilled by our predecessor Hess some years ago. It highlights
the stratigraphy in the area, in particular highlights the target Bakken drilling zone, which would be in the C through D members within the Bakken there. So at approximately 10,290 or 10,300 feet ish in that section.
No further questions.
Any questions from the staff?
Jeff, looking at your exhibit G2, your highlighted target zone, that's kind of in the lower part of the middle Bakken section. A lot of the historic drilling would have been likely targeting that B interval that you have identified, that cleaner gamma signature. Is that correct?
Typically, we have tried target just below that B. In the time that I've been drilling here, anyway.
Okay.
This particular well has a particularly thick clean B section, as you can see, and that clean B does tend to thicken and thin quite significantly in the area.
The existing wells in the spacing units, are they targeting that same zone just below that clean gamma?
In all honesty, I couldn't answer exactly how much of those wells were drilled within the clean and within the higher gamma section. I don't have that information to hand.
Okay. Getting back to my previous question, I'm going to jump over to L4 just for depiction purposes, but there's one of the middle Bakken well that you've got depicted there as it gets down into section 7 in the southwest of the southeast of 7. That dashed line for the proposed well would traverse the existing well bore. Would you?
I'm sorry, I do not have a copy of L4 in front of me. It hasn't been provided to me, so I don't have that at the moment.
Okay, well,
Zach, if you could send or put it on the chat, that would be great.
you might be able to answer even without looking at it, but where
Okay.
the well bore would depict crossing over an existing well bore, you kind of indicated you'd probably steer around existing well bores. You wouldn't really be able to steer around it the way it's depicted. Would you just cut it short in that case?
If we absolutely could not steer around it, I'm sorry, were you talking about it in the north end of section 17?
No, the south of section 7.
South section 7. Sorry, pardon me. As it approaches the wall, there's the exhibit. Yeah, okay, I see that. Yeah, I expect we would either cut it short, or I'm not familiar with the exact directional geometry on that particular lateral, so it could be that it's still in its tangent and build at that point and hasn't landed yet. So I'm not sure how high above the proposed lateral that crossing would occur. So certainly, I suspect we would probably end up cutting it short if we absolutely could get around it.
Okay, and then would that be similar answer? I'm looking at L5 in the north of 17, the northwest.
I would expect so. Again, the directional planning has not been done yet, so we'd have to get all the anti-pollution and everything together. But again, to say the final couple of hundred feet in the DSU for one lateral, we would probably cut short rather than try to do anything too fancy within a thin Bakken.
Okay, thank you.
You can call your next witness.
Okay. Alex, would you state your full name for the record, please?
Alex Sachin,
Can you spell your last name?
S-A-C-H-E-N.
Mr. Sachin, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Alex, by whom are you employed?
Enterplus Resources.
In what capacity?
Reservoir engineer.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
Would offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Alex, let's go to the next exhibit in the packet, previously marked E1. Tell us what E1 is, and then describe what's contained on it.
E1 is a generic wellbore set up for a 3-mile lateral in this area. We're estimating 10,650 for the TVD. Our intent is to set intermediate casing inside the middle Bakken, come back up, drill out, and set a liner that will be hung up above the middle Bakken and go out for 3 miles and do 60 stages.
Okay, and then let's,
Obviously, all of this can change based on where we actually land and which spacing unit we're at.
okay, let's go to RE1A.
Okay. RE1A is showing the parameters we use to calculate oil in place. We have a 34-foot net thickness with 5% porosity, 45% water saturation. We are assuming a formation volume factor of 1.2 in this area, with GORs initially coming in at 500, going up to 1,000 SCF per stock tank barrel. Using this calculation for the 1920 acres, we end up with 11.6 million barrels of oil in place. An expected recovery factor from the current well is 336,000. We're using 575,000 barrels per 3-mile lateral as our expected recovery. So our estimated primary oil recovery for this entire unit would be 2.6 million barrels, giving us 23% recovery factor.
Let's go to RE1B.
Okay, RE1B has all the same variables except for the expected recovery factor from existing wells, which is 466,000 barrels for the current wells. That gives us 2.76 million barrels of primary recovery for a 24% recovery factor.
RE1C.
RE1C currently is expected to recover 540,000 barrels, giving this unit 2.84 million barrels of recovery for a 24% recovery factor.
RE1D.
And RE1D currently has 561,000 barrels of recovery expected from existing wells, giving us 2.86 million barrels expected from this spacing unit and a 25% recovery factor.
Now let's go to RE2A.
Okay. Based on a $60 per barrel pricing and 360 gas for a 3-mile lateral that has a capital cost of 10.4 million barrels, we're using a GOR of 500 SCF per stock tank barrel going up to 1,000. We're expecting a recovery factor of 575,000 barrels of oil and 434,000 MCF. Economics based on this are a before tax return of 72%, an after tax payout of 1.4 before tax payout of 1.4 years, and a discount to investment of 1.6 to 1.
RE2B.
And RE2B, C, and D are all the exact same thing for our current wells that we're expecting to drill in these units.
And then finally, Exhibit GC1, is that a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of matters? Pardon me?
Correct, yes.
And in your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
That's all the questions I have. We'd offer the exhibits.
Exhibits are admitted. Any questions from the staff?
Alex, as I mentioned earlier to Zach, the development in this area has been on pattern stand-up 1,208 acre spacing units. And in these sparsely drilled out areas, it appears that 3-mile laterals are becoming the norm now. And when the Bakken play first started, there was operators spacing and developing their own acreage. And it turned into a giant game of Tetris to get all these spacing units to fit together, so we didn't leave lands that were probably not as economic to be developed. And if the commission hadn't stepped in and established that pattern, in my opinion, the Bakken would be a nightmare for putting spacings together where we are today. And the commission had an order where we spaced over 1,500 stand-up on-pattern drilling units to lay out the pattern that should be established and drilled. And this pattern would be considered off-pattern because eventually it's going to cross a township line where you cannot have a 3-mile space unit crossing that township line. So did Enerplus take any of that into account when they proposed these space units?
Yeah, we looked at all of the options in the area. You can see that in this area there are operators who are still drilling on 1280s and prefer to drill that way. When we were looking at our own acreage, we determined that we would prefer to do 3-mile laterals. We currently own or are the operator of all of these 1280 spacing units, and so they are on pattern with the current 1280 development plan. If we were to try and keep them within the township, we would have to break up a couple extra 1280s. And at this point in time, we are not sure if the other operators are going to want to do it that way.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes our hearing for case number 30563. Case number 30564, application of Slauson Exploration Company, Inc., for an order for the Big Bend Bakken Pool, Montreal County, North Dakota as follows. 1, create and establish an overlapping 1,600-acre spacing unit comprised of the south half of the south half in lots 5, 6, 7, 8 of Section 9 and all of Sections 16 and 21, Township 152 North,
You're the only person in this meeting.
Range 91 West, authorizing the drilling of a total not to exceed 2 horizontal wells on said proposed overlapping 1,600-acre spacing unit. 2, allow the number of wells for 2 existing 1,280-acre spacing units comprised of Sections 9 and 16 and Sections 21 and 28, Township 152 North, Range 91 West, to be no less than 4 wells per 1,280-acre spacing unit. And 3, amend order number 32177 and any other orders of the commission so as to terminate an existing 1,920-acre spacing unit comprised of Sections 22, 27, and 34, Township 152 North, Range 91 West, in Zone 38, and such further relief. This case has been dismissed. That concludes our hearing for case number 30564. Case number 30565. In a matter of a hearing called on a motion of the commission to consider the proper spacing for the development of the Cedar Creek Madison Pool, Bowman County, North Dakota, redefine the field limits and enact such special field rules as may be necessary. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this matter on behalf of Denbury Onshore LLC. By letter dated December 7th, 2023, to Mr. Mark Bohr, I advised the commission of what the current spacing is in this area, citing the order that was entered in February of 2021. I pointed out that Denbury has not drilled any wells since that temporary spacing order was entered. Denbury has no intentions of drilling any additional wells in this area, so our request is that the temporary spacing be made proper.
Any comments from the staff?
Lawrence, this is a obviously unique situation where neither wellhead was in North Dakota. Do you know if those 2 wells are still producing?
I believe they are. That's what I was advised that they are, yes.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes our hearing for case number 30565. Case number 30566. A motion of the commission to review the pilot injection project granted under order number 31739, authorizing Ballantine Oil LLC authority to use the Legacy et al. Bernstein number 13-7H well located in the southwest quarter of Section 7, Township 163 North, Range 76 West, Bottineau County, North Dakota, now operated by Fulcrum Energy Operating LLC as a combined production injection well for a pilot operation in the Red Rock Spearfish Pool to test the feasibility of enhanced oil recovery in the reservoir. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Fulcrum Energy Operating LLC. I'm going to have three witnesses testify in this case. They'll be appearing telephonically. Jeff Dinda, Chelsea Kraft, and Jesse Arndt, and I'll call them now.
What was the first name? Did you catch it?
Hey guys, can you hear me? All right, we're live in the hearing room.
Wait, what was the first name again?
First witness is Jeff Dinda,
I'm sorry, the last name again?
D-Y-N-D-A.
Dinda, okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Dinda,
Yes, sir.
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Examiner, just briefly, I guess before, just some context on this one. This is a case that's called on motion of the commission, and as you indicated, it relates to a pilot injectivity test that was initiated by Ballantine, and Fulcrum has now acquired those assets and interests, and they don't intend to go forward with the project, but there were requirements in the order that you referenced where the commission, wanted some information relating to the project, and the three witnesses that will testify will address that. They'll address, their evaluation of the project and the information requested, and kind of walk through the exhibits and address any questions. So, with that, Jeff will be the first witness. And Jeff, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, and in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Jeffrey Dinda, Fulcrum Energy Operating, senior geologist. Currently working out of my house, which is 5397 Tiger Bend Lane, Morrison, Colorado, 80465.
Jeff, have you previously testified before the commission?
I have not.
Okay. Can you just briefly run us through your relevant educational background and work experience?
Yeah, I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in geology from Indiana University of Pennsylvania. I've been employed as a geologist since 1998.
Okay. And Jeff, you've evaluated and reviewed the geology matters associated with this pilot project, is that correct?
This is correct, yes.
And you put together a couple of exhibits relating to that you'll address today?
Yes.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Dinda be received as that of an expert.
Motion granted.
And Jeff, let's start with exhibit number 1. If you can just walk us through that structure map and kind of identify the wells that are at issue.
Yeah, the Bernstein 137H is highlighted in blue. That is the injection well. The green wells that are highlighted were the monitor wells that were in the original order. Also displayed on this map is a structure map, top of Spearfish, 25-foot contour interval. We are dipping to the east at about 1 to 2 degrees roughly in this area. On the upper left-hand side is the pipe log that will be on the next exhibit, Sparpool 33-3.
Okay. And then let's go ahead and move on to that exhibit 2, that type log, if you can walk us through that exhibit.
Yeah, it's just a type log, again, of the 33-3 well, displaying the interval, the lower spearfish interval that is primarily the water flood formation. That is where the lateral is placed.
Okay. And that's all the questions I'm going to have for Mr. Dinda, and I'd offer Exhibits 1 and 2.
Exhibits are admitted. Any questions from the staff? Ms. Croft,
Hello.
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Chelsea, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, and in what capacity, and give us your business address?
My name is Chelsea Kraft. I'm employed by Fulcrum Energy Capital. Our business address is 240 St. Paul, Suite 502, Denver, Colorado, 80206.
And Chelsea, have you... Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Employed in what capacity did you say?
Reservoir engineer.
Okay. And have you previously testified before the commission?
Yes.
And have you had your qualifications received as an expert?
Yes.
Okay. And you're familiar with this injectivity project that was initiated by Ballantyne, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'd move the testimony of Ms. Kraft be received as that of an expert.
Motion granted.
And Chelsea, let's go ahead and start with your exhibit number 3. It's got figure 1 at the top. And if, kind of starting with that exhibit, if you can walk us through your evaluation of the Ballantyne injectivity test project.
Okay. So figure 1, this ties back to the engineering write-up, which is why it's got 2 different numbers on it. This is a map showing the location of the injector with the blue dashed line, and then you've got all of the offsets around it. The most affected wells for this are going to be the direct offset, which is the 13.7-2H and the 12.7-H. And that's all on that exhibit.
Okay. Then let's move on to exhibit number 4.
All right. Exhibit number 4 is a production plot out of PHP Wind. This shows the 12.7-2H. This is one of the nearby offsets for this field, or for this injection pilot. You can see the injection started in the beginning of 2020. The bump up in production on this well, you can see, actually occurred in 2019. It was cleaned out with an acid job. In 2020, you don't see any real response, either oil or gas, in that time frame from this water flood. As you continue down, you'll see another bump up in production in 2022. That again was an acid cleanout. You see a huge bump in oil and water production. And so from this chart, we kind of gathered there wasn't really any positive benefit from that water flood. And that's it for this exhibit.
Okay. And let's move on to exhibit 5.
Okay, exhibit 5 is another offset. This is not a direct offset. This is the Bernstein 12.7H. So this well has declined over time. It had some work done in 2019. And then if you look in 2020, you don't really see any bump in oil. You see a little bit of a bump in water, but we didn't see any corresponding bump in oil. So there wasn't really any benefit from this water flood. In 2022, you do see a benefit, but that was from a acid cleanup.
Okay. And moving on to exhibit 6.
All right, exhibit 6. This is the other direct offset to that injection well. This is the 13.7-2H. This well produced for quite some time until 2019. They did an acid cleanout, one of their earlier acid cleanouts. You can see it had a nice big positive bump from that acid cleanout. And then 2020 was when they did the water flood, and it commenced it. The well also was down, unfortunately, with pump changes and tubing repairs around that time, and then it came back on. We don't see any real positive benefit from the water flood in this well. We do see that the water has increased. However, the oil really hasn't, not substantially, and not in a way that we can attribute just to the water flood. I would attribute that to the workovers and the fact they fixed tubing links and pump issues in that well. As you continue, you see in 2022, they did a clean out. The well popped up, got a little bit more oil out of it, So that cleanout was slightly less successful, but it also was a smaller cleanout. You also see the water. But you can see from the water flood that the water is increasing and encroaching into this well. So instead of giving us oil, it's just giving us more water. Which unfortunately in this field, the water is not helpful in this instance. So that's all on that one.
Sure. Let's move on to Exhibit 7 then.
All right, Exhibit 7 is another one of the wells that correspond back to that geo exhibit where they were all highlighted as the offset. This well, you can tell, has multiple downtime issues and clean out. So from the water flood, you can't really see any discernible benefit from it. You see a lot of the well being turned off and on due to workovers. Most of these are hole and tubing. So, and that's all on that one.
Okay, moving on to Exhibit 8.
Exhibit 8 is another offset. This well had cleanout 2019 around the same time as the water flood 2020. You can see a definite benefit from the cleanout. You don't see really any reaction from the water flood on the oil or the water. And then in 2023, it had another cleanout. You see positive reaction to that, both oil and water.
Okay. Exhibit 9.
Exhibit 9 is, again, another offset, not a direct one. This well had a cleanout in 2019, went down with a hole in tubing, I believe, in 2020, or a broad part, I'm not positive on that. And then came back. We don't see any benefit really from the water flood. I would assume we see more water and more oil, but most of that's left over from that initial acid treatment in 2019, as well as the workover that was done on this well. You see another acid cleanout 2022, positive response. This one has no real response to the water flood.
Okay. And Exhibit 10.
All right, sorry, this is getting repetitive for you. This is another production plot of one of the offsets. This you can see in 2019 they did a clean out. If the well went down in 2020 for a workover, came back on. We don't really see any benefit from water flood in this well. When the water flood commenced in 2020, the oil was pretty steady. So we have a little bump later, clean out, so with water. So you see a distinct clean out in 2022 with positive response in oil and water. From this, we don't see any real response from the water flood.
Okay. And let's move on to Exhibit 11.
Okay. Okay. This one, same. It's kind of the same pattern as all the other ones before. In 2019, had a clean out. And then 2020, we don't see a response really to the water flood because the well went down, had a workover. The water stayed fairly constant on the decline. We don't see water movement from that injector well moving into this well.
Okay, and then Exhibit 12, the last of these.
Okay, so 2019, they did a clean out, so you saw positive response. The well went down in 2020 with a workover. They worked it over, it came back on. Unfortunately, if there was any benefit from that water flood and that oil, it's going to be included by that workover. Based on the water, I don't really see any huge increase from the water flood in this well. So no real reaction or benefit from the water flood.
Okay. And Chelsea, I believe Jesse's going to cover the remaining exhibits, correct?
Yes, yes.
And did you have any other conclusions with respect to your end of it and the project?
The general conclusions through all of those charts and through the engineering analysis I did on it is there was not really any clear benefit from the water flood, unfortunately, and we've seen a much clearer benefit from our restimulation with acid cleanout. So for us, it makes more economic sense. There's not to put all of our time and effort into the cleanout. So the water flood just is not really an economic project for us at this time, based on how they were doing it.
Okay. I have no further questions for Ms. Kraft. I'd offer it would be Exhibits 3 through 12.
The exhibits are admitted. Any questions from the staff?
Chelsea, on Exhibit 3,
Okay? Yeah.
what's the meaning of the numbers at the end of the wellbore?
Those are the last 5 digits of the API booth, I believe.
Say that again?
Those should be API numbers, I believe. This is not my original map.
Yeah, I don't think they've drilled 93,000 wells in that county, so I don't know what they are. They're not API.
I'm not sure. Yeah. I can look up and submit something to you and let you know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
And then
Yeah.
and the symbols, what are those indicative of?
Oil well. It's just part of the mapping program. That's how they decided to put them in there. So that shows the bottom hole location, and then we have the top hole as a little smaller dot. So to just basically to show the difference between the bottom hole and the top hole. So those all show oil well. So you can see also under 12 in Johanna Botten, that's a dry hole. That's the symbol for dry hole in this program.
On your decline curves,
Uh-huh.
on the exhibit, 13, where's the, exhibit 6.
Okay.
There's an uptick in oil production later on at the end of 2020, it looks like, and into 21.
Yes.
Was that attributable to the water injection?
Hold on 1 second. I've got a blown up version of that for me with notes on it. So that well is, so they had on 7/8/4/2020, they did an acid job. So we think that peak is that acid actually getting into there. So there is somewhat of an incline into there. There could be a little bit of a benefit, but the fact it went immediately is plugged off. The issue we have with the water out here is it does have plugging off capabilities, so we have to go in and acidize and remove scale. So the more water you move, the more scale you get. So it kind of becomes a chicken and the egg problem. You try to clean it out, you try to move more water. Because you need to do more cleanouts, it ends up being more and more expensive because you're spending more and more money on cleanouts as well as pulls and tubing because of the scale and everything in here moving more water as a water flood. Intuitively, you would think that it would move more oil, you get more money, but it ends up being more expensive in the long run when you look at how many workovers you have to do. So, and every time you bring a well, when you have a well on and then turn it off and then turn it on again, you're changing a little bit in the reservoir and you're also giving it a chance to plug off. So we didn't attribute that to the water flood, not conclusively because of all the workovers that were done.
When has injection ceased in this pilot?
That would be Jesse. That would be our operation. I'm not positive on that.
No, it's still currently injecting.
Okay, well, we'll get to that when Jesse testifies. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Arndt,
Yes, sir.
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Jesse, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, and in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Certainly. My name is Jesse Orange. I'm the team's lead production engineer. I'm employed by Fulcrum Energy Operating, and our address is 240 St. Paul Street, Suite 502, Denver, Colorado.
And Jesse, have you previously testified before the commission?
I have.
Have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
And Jesse, are you familiar with this pilot project that we're discussing today?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, I'd move the testimony, Mr. Arndt, be received as that of an expert.
Motion granted.
And Jesse, let's start with your exhibit number 13, if you can kind of walk us through that exhibit.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning. So Exhibit 13 is a plot of
fluid levels on the offset well to the Bernstein injector from inception of the water flood back in January of 2020. And so on your y-axis, you'll see measured depth, feet to liquid level. This was measured with an echometer fluid level gun. On the x-axis are the week of dates when the fluid levels were captured. And then you'll see the plotted data is the distance traveled from that fluid level shot to the liquid level from surface, scaled to 1,500 feet to 3,300 feet, just so it's a little easier to read. I think just some things to point out as you're taking a look at it. There is an increase in fluid level in the spring of 2020 on the Berge 12-12-1. That's an increase due to downtime. You'll see one on the Bernstein 12-8-2, which is the blue line, dark blue line, and that is an acid job and a workover. You'll see an increase on the Bernstein 13-7-2, and that is going to be the lighter blue line, and that is downtime and a workover. The other big inflections in fluid level that you'll note on the Bernstein 4-18-1 occurring in 2022. That was pump issues noted in the field, and so they were having issues moving enough liquid. We got those resolved, and the fluid level came back down. And additionally, the Bernstein Barbeau 12-8, which you'll note in 2023 with an acid treatment.
Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to Exhibit 14 then.
Certainly. So Exhibit 14, this is the plot of the injector itself, the Bernstein 13-7. On the y-axis, you'll see monthly injected water volumes in barrels. The x-axis, the injection month. And on the secondary y-axis, you'll see the tubing injection pressure, the average reported on a monthly basis. Some things to note here. Again, injection commences in January of 20. You can kind of see as volume goes up, injected, as does the tubing injection pressure, as you would expect. Injection rate doesn't really stabilize. It seems to fall off. From notes from the previous operator, this was a mechanical issue with the injection pump itself. That issue gets remedied in July of 21, which is where you see the second increase in water rate and the tubing pressure going up to the permitted injection pressure. The injection volume then starts to taper off into the spring of 22. At that point in time, the previous operator enters the wellbore, cleans out the wellbore, and spots acid to try to clean up scale and solid. There is a note that they did bring back approximately 35 barrels of sludge during that clean out operation. You can see where it returns to production in the summer of 22. The injection pressure is much lower. Injection volumes come up, and then into the winter of 23, we see ourselves back towards the permanent injection pressure, where and then the volume starts to drop off. Approximate fill-up is going to have occurred in the fall of 22 from the original voided volume, which was 129,000 barrels. And you don't tend to see a big break over there as you see fill-up, but we do see what we believe is additional plugging occurring into early 2023 and continuing into the fall of this year.
Okay. Let's move on to 15.
Certainly. This is a very similar plot to the Exhibit 14, with the change being it shows cume water volume to help get a sense of if fill is being reached and if there's in fact an impact to that. You could be seeing something in late 2022. I tend to think that the slope of the loss of injectivity in 23 looks very similar to the slope of loss of injectivity in 2022. But I tend to think we're seeing, additional, perforation plugging.
Okay. And then finally, let's move on to exhibit number 16. If you can just sort of summarize, the data in that injection table and your sort of thoughts and conclusions on the pilot project.
Certainly. Exhibit 16 is the data from the previous slide, just in tabular form. Again, I think as you look at the water flood in general, it looks like we're not able to get an adequate water volume injected to be effective. And I think one combination of a lack of response at the fluid level and the producer level points to the pilot being ineffective. And then I think you look at the operational issues that have been encountered over the last 3 years. I think it's proven to be an ineffective method to water flood, at least the way it's currently set up.
Sure. So, Jesse, just to confirm, based on your evaluation of the project and all the data that you guys have presented today, it's your request that the injectivity project be terminated. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Arndt. I'd offer exhibits 13 through 16.
Exhibits are admitted. Any questions from the staff?
Jesse, since you're requesting it for it to be terminated, when do you expect to stop injecting into this project?
On the decision from yourself.
What's your future plans then for that injection well?
I would look at it to return to a producer. I think much like we would the remaining wells in the field, just taking a look at economics.
Okay, and your plan is for the other wells to try to return them to production for now?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we would leave the remainder of the area online. I think we've seen a lot of positive responses from acid jobs. The spearfish does have a tendency to generate calcium carbonate scale and some iron sulfide. Do see good responses as we clean up these wellbores. I think what we'd look to do is continue to bring volume up as we go through and stimulate the wells.
Okay, thanks.
Jesse, if Fulcrum believes the pilot project is ineffective and not providing any benefit, why are you still continuing to inject?
I believe, sir, but it's our understanding that until we had this hearing and a ruling from yourselves that we would need to continue to do so.
Well, I don't think the commission would ever require somebody to continue a project they felt was ineffective. But at any rate, you can either expect a decision or a letter to order the injection to stop, but you're free to stop on your own. I mean, it's not required by the commission. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, sir.
That concludes our hearing for case number 30566. Case number 30569, application of the Huyan Family Limited Partnership for an order suspending production operations, shutting in the Flat Top Butte 31-3H well, and granting a change of operator for said well located in the northwest-northeast quarter of Section 3, Township 145 North, Range 101 West, Flat Top Butte, Bach and Pool, McKenzie County, North Dakota, from Coil Dakota Operating LLC to an operator to be determined in such further relief. This case has been continued to our January hearings. That concludes our hearing for case number 30569. Case number 30570, application of Continental Resources, Inc. as provided for in NDAC Section 430203-88.1 for an order allowing indirect heaters to be located no closer than 60 feet to the wellheads of the Buddy number 1-27H well and the Domingo 1-22 well located in the northwest-northeast quarter of Section 27, Township 156 North, Range 99 West, East Fork Field, Williams County, North Dakota, as an exception to the requirements of NDAC Section 43-02-03-28. This case has been dismissed. That concludes our hearing for case number 30570.
Hello?
Case number 30510. Application of Coda Resources Operating LLC for an order for the Fertile Valley Bakken Pool, Divide County, North Dakota, to create and establish an overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit comprised of sections 5, 6, 7, and 8, Township 160 North, Range 102 West, authorizing the drilling of a horizontal well on or near the section line between the existing space units of said proposed overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck. Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing in case 30510 on behalf of Coda Resources Operating LLC. And we'll be calling, just give me a moment here. We'll be calling three witnesses. And just give me a moment and I'll hand out the exhibits. The three witnesses we'll be calling are Ms. Allie Schuster will be offering some land testimony. Ms. Catherine, and she goes by Kat Pfeiffer, will be offering some geologic testimony. And then we'll have an engineering witness, Mr. Jake Hervey.
What was the last name?
Hervey, H-E-R-V-E-Y.
Ms. Schuster,
Yes,
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Allie, by whom are you employed?
Coda Resources,
In what capacity?
the landman.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes, I have.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Ally, let's go to the packet of exhibits that I've distributed to the commission staff for case 30510. Let's go to exhibit L1, and I would like you to tell me what L1 is and then briefly describe what's contained upon it.
Yes, Exhibit L1 is the regional locator map for this 2560 spacing unit. It shows the 2560 spacing unit proposed in red, right on the border between Divide and Williams County.
Okay, and then let's go to Exhibit L2. Once again, identify and then briefly describe what's contained upon it.
Exhibit L2 is a location map. It's a zoom in of the proposed 2560 spacing unit outlined in a red dash, covering sections 5, 6, 7, and 8 of 160-102 in Fertile Valley Township.
And then L3.
So Exhibit L3 is another zoom in of our proposed 2560 acre spacing unit, again in sections 5, 6, 7, and 8 of 160-102. It's shown in the dashed red line. We've also shown the existing spacing associated with these sections. So in April, we heard case number 30012, order number 32621, where we created 1920 spacing units in sections 6, 7, and 18, and 5, 7, or 5, 8, and 17. And when we did that, we left in place two 1,280 acre DSUs in sections 6 and 7 and sections 5 and 8 respectively to offset existing production in sections 18 and 17 to the south. We show our current working interest in each of the units. So in the 1280 in sections 5 and 8, CODA's current working interest is 54.45%. In the 1280 in sections 6 and 7, CODA's current working interest is 68.43%. And in our proposed 2560 line well unit, CODA's working interest is 61.44%.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any questions from staff?
Ally, this may be a question more for the engineering witness, but since CODA's gone to great lengths to establish stand-up 1,920 acre spacing units in this area, why are you drilling a 2-mile lease line well?
I can cover that in the engineering or right now. This is Jake.
No, we can
You want to wait?
Yeah, we can wait.
Okay.
Ms. Pfeiffer,
Yes, sir.
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Kat, by whom are you employed?
CODA Resources
In what capacity?
as a geologist.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes, I have.
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yeah.
For the further testimony, this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Kat, let's go to G1. Tell me what that is.
The G1 is a structure map and subsea CVD on the Middle Bakken member. The contour interval is 25 feet. We have the same field outline on the previous land exhibits in green, as well as dashed red for the spacing we're hearing here. And then the cross section that we'll see on the next exhibit from A to A prime is also annotated.
Okay, and G2?
G2 is a type log cross section starting at the lower lodgepole down to the bird bear, and we will be targeting the Middle Bakken.
No further questions.
Any questions from the staff? Mr. Hurdy?
Yes.
Hervey, pardon me. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Jake, by whom are you employed?
CODA Resources
And what capacity?
as a reservoir engineer.
And in that capacity, you've testified before the commission previously? Pardon me?
Yes.
And had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
For the further testimony, this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Okay, Jake, let's go to Exhibit E1 in the packet. Tell us what E1 is.
So E1 shows the proposed 2560 acre spacing unit with our existing producing wells, our additional spacing units that have already been approved, and then the wells associated with those. And in the middle, you can see basically the one line well that we're planning to drill in the proposed 2560. And so just to hit the earlier question, the reason for the 2 mile laterals is because of the 2 mile lateral development directly to the south. And so our plan is to drill primarily 3 mile laterals that you can see here, but then to drill the 3 2 mile laterals in the area where it makes more sense just spacing wise.
Okay, let's go to Exhibit E2.
E2 just shows our reservoir parameters for the Middle Bakken and Upper Three Forks, and as well as our fluid properties associated with the reservoir. So we have about 50 feet of Middle Bakken. We typically produce about 42 API oil here. And then oil in place estimate within where we would drill our line well is about 2.4 million barrels. And then we're showing a recovery factor of about 60% for our one well in that area.
Okay, and then let's go to Exhibit E3.
E3 shows the economics associated with the proposed line well. You can see that we're estimating a payout of about 17 months and rate of return of around 38%.
And then E4.
E4 shows our Middle Bakken 2 mile lateral type well diagram with our 7-inch intermediate casing, our 4.5-inch tieback liner, and then our about 70 planned plug and perf stages.
And E5, is that a gas capture affidavit that the commission typically requires in these sorts of matters?
Yes, it is.
In your opinion, will the requested relief prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
Mr. Examiner, no further questions. We would offer the exhibits.
Exhibits are admitted. Any questions from the staff?
Jake, you expanded a little bit upon why you wanted to drill a 2 mile lease line well here. But if you look on exhibit, we'll use G1, which has the entire area. You look to the south and you have 4 2 mile wells drilled there, and there's no development on the lease line in between those. Do you plan on developing those lease lines?
We might at some point in the future. We don't see coming back in between the two existing wells as prospective currently.
So, which are better, 2 mile wells or 3 mile wells?
3 mile wells.
So why wouldn't you drill a 3 mile lease line well then?
For the potential for adverse effects to the existing producers and degraded performance of the 3 mile well.
Adverse effects being what?
Bracket.
So the difference being that in your proposal, you're going to drill the lease line well with the two...
In conjunction.
In conjunction with the two
Yes.
infill wells?
That's correct.
So if I understand correctly, at this point, CODA doesn't foresee developing a lease line to the south?
Not in the current price environment.
Okay, thank you.
Jake, looking at your exhibit E2, the reservoir properties that are on there, 6.5% porosity and 64% water saturation in the Middle Bakken. Is that 64% water saturation accurate?
Yes. There's there's an offset core within a mile or two of this area showing that.
Okay. I guess, is there a reason you're targeting Middle Bakken when your Three Forks looks to have better porosity and lower water saturation?
Yeah, it's more of a thickness and total oil in place consideration. And then in this area, the lower Bakken shale is very thin. So targeting the Middle Bakken is drains the upper Three Forks as well, and they kind of perform as a unit.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
That concludes our hearing for case number 30510. Case number 30152. Temporary spacing to develop an oil and/or gas pool discovered by the White Rock Oil and Gas LLC, number 21X-21F, Grassy Butte Well, northeast-northwest quarter, section 21, township 146 north, range 99 west, Mackenzie County, North Dakota. Define the field limits and enact such special field rules as may be necessary. This case has been continued to the June of 2024 hearings. That concludes our hearing for case number 30152. Case number 30605, application of Petrohunt LLC for an order requiring that Rocky Top Energy LLC immediately cease and desist from conducting any operations at or on the Sheep Federal 1A well on a spacing unit for the Boxcar Butte, Bird Bear, Duperow, and/or Red River pools consisting of the west half of Section 15, Township 148 North, Range 102 West, and the Cinnamon Creek 31-7H well on a spacing unit for the Cinnamon Creek Bakken pool consisting of Section 7, Township 145 North, Range 102 West, Mackenzie County, North Dakota, and after hearing designating Petrohunt Dakota LLC as operator of the wells and granting such other relief as may be appropriate. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Petrohunt Dakota LLC. And Mr. Examiner, I have one witness here today live, Mr. Justin Vanderlyn. And just before I call Justin, just a few comments, try to context with respect to what Petrohunt Dakota is looking to do here. So Petrohunt assigned 7 wells, including the 2 that you referenced, to Rocky Top. There's a wellbore assignment. It's recorded in Mackenzie County. We've got that as an exhibit. In conjunction with that, they also filed the Form 15 with the commission, but that, our understanding is that is still pending. The wells have not been, it hasn't been approved. So that being said, those 7 wells are still subject to Petrohunt Dakota's bond, but 2 of those 7 wells, the ones referenced, are producing wells, and it's our understanding that Rocky Top has been operating and producing those wells, which poses risk to Petrohunt since they've assigned their interest in those wells. They remain on the Petrohunt bonds if somebody else is out there producing them, and it's my understanding without a bond in place. So it would be our request, that Rocky Top be immediately prohibited from, operating any of those wells without a bond, since they're subject to Petrohunt Dakota's bond. I mean, ideally, I think Petrohunt Dakota would like the commission to approve the transfer since they've already assigned away these interests to Rocky Top, so that once the transfer is approved, then they're Rocky Top's wells, they should be under Rocky Top bonds. So that would be kind of the relief that we ideally would be looking for, but until that were to happen, we don't want Rocky Top out there, operating these wells, without a bond, puts Petrohunt Dakota at risk. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we're looking at, and I can call Justin Vanderlyn and kind of walk through kind of what we're looking at, the history, and address any questions. So,
Do you want to call the witness? Or?
yes, I'll call Justin Vanderlyn. And
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Justin, can I have you state your name for the record? Tell us by whom you're employed and what capacity.
Yes, my name is Justin Vanderlinden. I'm employed by Petrohunt LLC as a landman.
And what's your business address?
P.O. Box 935, Bismarck, North Dakota, 58502.
And Justin, have you previously testified before the commission?
Yes, I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes.
And Justin, are you familiar with the wellbore assignment and the transfer of these 7 wells to Rocky Top?
Yes.
Okay, you've been involved in that transaction?
Correct.
Okay. I'd move the testimony of Mr. Vanderlyn be received as that of an expert.
Motion granted.
And Justin, exhibit number 1, is that the wellbore assignment assigning the wells we're discussing?
Yes.
Okay. And that was recorded in McKenzie County?
That's correct.
Okay. And of the 7 wells that are subject to that wellbore assignment, is it your understanding that 2 of them, the Sheep Federal 1A and the Cinnamon Creek 317H, that those are currently being produced?
Yes, they are.
And Rocky Top is producing those?
Yes, so we have to report the numbers to the NDIC on a monthly basis, and we're getting the numbers relayed from Rocky Top to us to support that fact.
Okay. And then let's move on to what's marked as exhibit number 2. Do you have that?
Yep.
And that's the Form 15 transfer?
That's correct.
And Petro Hunt Dakota filed that, and does that include each of those 7 wells that are subject to the wellbore assignment, exhibit number 1?
Yes, they do.
Okay. And Justin, is it your understanding that that remains pending, that the transfer hasn't been approved yet?
As I understand it, the bond or the official transfer has not been approved because Rocky Top has not supplied the necessary bonds.
Okay. And I guess, is it your request, I guess, one being that the commission approve the transfer of the wells to Rocky Top?
Yes.
Okay. And I guess until that happens, is it your understanding that these wells remain on Petro Hunt Dakota's bond?
That's what I understand, yes.
Okay. And if you can kind of elaborate, does that pose some risks to Petro Hunt if somebody else is out there operating these wells?
It does. There's a significant risk that we incur it with somebody else operating those wells because they're not currently covered under our blanket insurance bond.
Okay. So I guess until unless and until the commission were to approve the transfer to Rocky Top, would it be your request that, with respect to the 2 that are currently producing, the Sheep Federal and the Cinnamon Creek 317H, that Rocky Top be required to immediately cease, operating and producing from those wells?
Yes.
I think that's all the questions that I'm going to have at this point for Mr. Vanderlyn, and I'd offer the 2 exhibits.
Exhibits are admitted. Any questions from the staff?
Justin, looking at the transfer, there's also another Cinnamon Creek well, the Cinnamon Creek 14-9 HR well. It shows it's currently TA, but it's actually expired. Petro Hunt filed an intent to work over that was approved in June 12th of 2023. Is Petro Hunt planning on doing this work, or is Rocky Top doing this work?
No, I'm not aware that Petro Hunt would have filed anything with intention to do it ourselves. We've sort of been piecemealing things from Rocky Top and kind of acting as an intermediary for them. I'm not 100% sure if it came from them, but we have no intention to work over this well.
So if you're worried of Rocky Top operating the 2 active wells, would there be a liability and worry from Petro Hunt for Rocky Top to be working over the wells for liability reasons as well?
Yes, but I think the intention there is to get the Form 15 approved so we can get the transfer into their name.
So you don't have a problem with the liability of them working over that well, but the operating wells is the issue at hand.
No, we have a problem with them doing everything, operating, working over. We don't want them to do anything on our bond. But I don't think, I would have to look at who actually filed the intent to work over, if it was something that was supplied from them or if it was something that we did in conjunction with what we received from the NDIC for, I believe there was a notice to return to production that was sent in at some point, I believe in April. Yeah, April 19th. That well is actually not included in that. If it's the Cinnamon Creek 14 9HR, that's not included in that. So I'm not, I would have to double check as to who submitted that and what the intent was behind that.
Okay, I can tell you it was submitted by Jesse Spohr of Petro Hunt,
Okay.
But the actual Word document doesn't have a specific name on it, whether it was typed up by Jesse or Rocky Top. I'm not unsure on that.
Sure.
But good, thanks.
Justin, you testified that Rocky Top has not submitted the required bond. What are you basing that on?
That's what was relayed to the, to Petro Hunt from the NDIC, that the transfer could not be approved because the bond was not submitted, or the necessary information.
Okay, and this is probably a question for Wade. Do you want the commission to order Rocky Top cease and desist? Where is the commission's authority to order a well to cease and desist operations?
Sure. I guess first, ideally, we would prefer that the transfer be approved and, that we're no longer on the bond since we've assigned the interest. With respect to the commission's, I think the commission has broad kind of regulatory authority to, regulate oil and gas operations, and there's a requirement in 43020315, with respect to bonding, and I think it would be probably, an illegal operation or contrary to the regs if somebody doesn't have a bond in place, but they're out there operating a well, and they don't really have a right to be operating a well on somebody else's bond. So I think that the authority of the commission does exist to prohibit somebody from operating a well when they don't have a bond.
And the assignment obviously has already taken place, but the well obviously remains in Petro Hunt's name and or is bonded by Petro Hunt. Does Petro Hunt have any legal remedies to force them to stop operating?
There would be, I suppose there would be remedies in, district court with respect to the assignment, to the extent that they would need to try to, unwind the assignment or, challenge the assignment, the validity of the assignment, but that would require action in district court.
Okay, thank you.
I got one more. This might be for you, Wade. But has Rocky Top relayed any reasoning as to why they haven't posted the bonds yet for each of the wells?
I haven't had communications with Mr. Vanderlyn, and I believe has had some communications with respect to Rocky Top bonding. Have you, Justin?
Yeah, I've had several conversations with them, dating back to January of 2023. There's been about 3 or 4 different instances in which they said they're going through management changes and that they were going through a buyout process, and that effective, the next week they would have the bonding taken care of. And it just continues to kind of snowball down there, where they sort of give the same answer or a vague answer and then nothing happens.
Oh, thanks.
Do you know, Justin, if Petro Hunt Dakota notified the commission 30 days prior to the closing date of the transfer?
I do not have that information available, but we could certainly check on that.
Are you aware that's a requirement of the transfer to alleviate situations like this?
I am not personally, but our Jesse Spoor, the one that handles this in our office, would likely have that information.
So it's your understanding and obviously your testimony that Petro Hunt Dakota is the bonded operator of the wells, mainly the 2, I guess I'll say, in the case noted. Has Petro Hunt Dakota, and maybe Wade answer this, have you supplied any communications via letters or something directly to the assigned operator telling them to stop until the transfer is approved? I guess what I'm getting at with is what happens if the commission doesn't approve the transfer?
To answer your first question, I've had several instances of communication with them asking them to stop and not operate under our bond. So I can document that all with a supplement if required, but we've had several instances of communication in which we've told them they do not have the authority to operate under our bond.
Have any sundries been submitted, as Jared indicated, have any sundries been submitted in since they have taken assignment dates?
Not that I'm aware of.
And so Petro Hunt Dakota is reporting the production on behalf of Rocky Top is what you're stating.
Yes.
I guess just to kind of go on with what Mr. Bohr was stating, really until that Form 15 is transferred, the bond is under, the operator is the bonded operator as stated in the regulation. So I kind of feel like it should be handled a little more from a direct communication or from the attorney side to tell them to stop. I mean, Petro Hunt is the liable operator until that transfer is approved.
Well, Mr. Taylor, I mean, we can certainly communicate, that to Rocky Top, but that being said, I mean, I don't think there's any legal right of somebody to operate a well, without that entity having a bond in place or some authority from, whoever's under the bond, like contract operator, whatever it might be. If you don't have a bond, it's contrary to 4302.15. And you shouldn't be allowed to operate. So, and Petro Hunt Dakota doesn't really have the authority to force Rocky Top to stop operating. Really, only the commission can force them to stop operating without a bond in place.
Thank you.
So Wade, with that being said, wells get transferred every day in North Dakota. The commission has no idea that it's coming, usually until after the fact. And any transfer could end up like this, where the other operator doesn't supply a bond. And I don't think, and I haven't thought this through completely, but it certainly isn't fair to put the commission in that position of having to manage bonds for operators. I mean, should the sale be conditional upon them filing a bond? I mean, we could run into this situation every day.
Yeah, no, I don't have any thought on that, and I'm not really suggesting that. I think this is a little bit different than it has gone on for some time after the after the assignment and after the filing of the Form 15, and there's still no relief. So I'm not suggesting it by any means, sort of as a matter of course, that you kind of shut everybody down immediately. I think it would be something like this, where it was brought to your attention through an application, in a hearing, where it could be addressed.
But in hindsight, is there something different Petro Hunt could have done?
We now have made it sort of standard practice to put into our assignments that is a condition of approval that they be bonded prior to the assignment taking effect.
Okay, thank you.
Wade, did Rocky Top give you a reason as to why they didn't appear today? I'm assuming that they were given notice of the hearing.
I saw on the case file that they were given notice of the hearing. I have not received any word from anybody at Rocky Top.
Justin, did you send this to Rocky Top letting them know?
I reached out and said, there's a pending hearing, asking for an update if they supply the necessary bonds. I didn't hear anything back.
Okay, thanks.
Anything further?
No, Mr. Examiner, thank you.
That concludes our hearing for case number 30605. That concludes our hearings for the day. We'll go off the record